She sent her family one last photo, smiling, happy, 22 years old, on the trip of a lifetime. 12 hours later, she was dead in a hotel room, and the man responsible spent the next 4 days shopping for a suitcase, renting a car, and buying a shovel while telling police on camera that he'd done nothing wrong. This is the story of Grace Millane and the man who almost got away with calling her murder an accident. Grace Emily Rose Millane was born in Essex, England, in 1996, the youngest of three, with two older brothers, Michael and Declan. Friends describe her the same way, over and over: warm, sociable, deeply close with her family, endlessly creative. She studied advertising and marketing at the University of Lincoln, and the moment she graduated, she started planning something bigger, a year-long solo trip around the world. Before she left, she did something that says everything about who she was. She cut off her long hair and donated it to the Little Princess Trust so it could become a wig for a child with cancer. In October 2018, she said goodbye to her family and set off. She backpacked through Peru, spent 6 weeks working her way across South America, and made friends everywhere she went, sending home a constant stream of photos and updates. She was, by every account, a home bird at heart. She never went quiet for long. That detail matters. Hold on to it. On November 19th, Grace, now 21, landed in New Zealand alone. 11 days later, she reached Auckland and checked into a hostel called the Base Backpackers on Queen Street. Saturday, December 1st, 2018, just before 6 p.m., Grace left the hostel in a black dress and white shoes, carrying a small handbag. She was on her way to meet a man she'd matched with on Tinder. She'd been messaging a friend back home about him all evening. "I click with him so well. He's an oil manager. He lives in a hotel." By every message she sent, the night was going well. They met at Sky City, a casino and entertainment complex downtown, then moved to a bar called the Blue Stone Room. At one point, Grace got up from the table, and the man she was with picked up her handbag and started going through it. Just after 9:30 p.m., the two of them left the bar arm in arm. It was the last time anyone who loved Grace would ever see her alive. The next day was her birthday. She turned 22, and she never answered a single message. Her family and friends flooded her phone with birthday messages. Nothing came back. Both her phones went straight to voicemail. Her brother Declan knew immediately something was wrong. Grace had been messaging them constantly, practically hour by hour, since she landed. Silence on her birthday wasn't just unusual. It was a red flag no one could ignore. On December 5th, her parents reported her missing. Police contacted the hostel. She'd never checked back in. At first, investigators weren't alarmed. Most of her things were still in her room. Maybe she'd made new friends and lost track of time. It happens. Then they pulled the CCTV. Auckland is a city wired with cameras, and it didn't take long to reconstruct exactly where Grace had been that night, and exactly who she'd been with. The same night she vanished, Grace had updated her Facebook profile picture. One comment appeared underneath it: "Beautiful, very radiant." It came from her Tinder date. His name was Jesse Kempson, 26 years old, currently staying at the City Life Hotel in Auckland. And just days before he met Grace, Kempson had posted something online, an apology of sorts for his mistakes, his arrogance, his selfishness. Here's who Jesse Kempson actually was. Raised partly by his grandparents after his parents split, mostly estranged from his own family, Kempson was known by nearly everyone who crossed his path for one thing: he lied constantly about almost everything. He told people he was related to a famous All Blacks rugby star. He told a former landlord he'd signed with New Zealand's national softball team and was just waiting on contract money. For 8 straight weeks, until the landlord finally called the team and found out none of it was true, he told the City Life Hotel he was a top manager at Woolworths. In reality, his rent was covered by government benefits. His most recent job, telephone sales, ended in a dismissal for lying to customers. That dismissal happened on December 1st, 2018. The same day he met Grace Millane. Police brought him in for a routine interview on December 5th, the day Grace was reported missing. On camera, he seemed cooperative, almost eager to help. He described the date in detail. Meeting at Sky City, walking to a burger place, security in numbers, how meeting in public made him feel safe in case she was catfishing him. He described a warm, ordinary goodbye, a hug, a kiss on the cheek, plans to meet again the next day. He said he messaged her the following morning and noticed she'd unmatched him, and that, he told police, was the end of it. Then an officer asked him directly, would he be willing to give a voluntary DNA sample? 100%. I mean, I know I haven't done anything wrong, so I'm happy to do it. He was told, plainly, that Grace might be dead, that someone might have murdered her. Am I being arrested for something I didn't do? He asked. He wasn't. Not yet. But the police weren't finished with the footage. Not even close. Nearly 6 terabytes of CCTV were being combed through, and it told a completely different story than the one Kempson had just given. Despite his claim that they'd parted ways on the street, the cameras showed Grace and Jesse arriving at the City Life Hotel arm in arm. They stepped into the lift together, up to his floor. Grace Millane was never seen leaving that building. The next morning, her birthday, cameras picked up Jesse leaving alone, and then police watched him, hour by hour, do something no innocent man does. He bought a suitcase. He bought cleaning supplies. He rented a red Toyota Corolla. That evening, he met up with another Tinder match and told her, unprompted, about burying bodies and having friends on the police force. She got such a bad feeling that she refused to get in his car and never spoke to him again. The next morning, he bought a shovel. He rented a carpet cleaning machine, telling staff he had red wine stains to deal with. He power washed the rental car before returning it. And on December 5th, the same day police first came looking for him, he was spotted around the city, dumping items in public bins. When officers finally reached the City Life Hotel to speak with him, Jesse Kempson happened to be walking back in the front door at that exact moment. He saw them. He turned his head away and tried to walk straight back out. They caught him at the door. This is where the story stops being about a missing girl and starts being about how far one man would go to make sure no one ever found out what he'd done. If a case like this is keeping you up at night, you're not alone. Hit subscribe, because we cover a new one every week, and there's a lot more to Grace's story ahead. Back at the station, Kempson still denied everything, but his hotel room told its own story. Despite his efforts to scrub it clean, Grace's blood was still on the floor. 3 days later, with the evidence mounting, Kempson was brought in again, and this time, his story changed completely. He claimed the two of them had started talking about 50 Shades of Grey, that things escalated into rougher, consensual sex, that she'd asked him to choke her, that at some point they ended up on the floor, and then he went into the shower and, in his words, fell asleep. When he woke up, he said he assumed she'd simply left. He panicked at the silence, went downstairs, and didn't check. It was a story built entirely around one word: accident. Police didn't believe it for a second. They told him plainly what came next, that Grace would be exhumed, that a pathologist would determine exactly how she died, that experts don't miss the difference between misadventure and murder. Did you kill Grace Millane? Jesse Kempson was arrested for her murder that day. Using the location he'd given up, officers searched an area near the Waitakere Ranges. By 4 p.m., they'd found a body buried roughly 10 yards from the road. New Zealand's Prime Minister at the time, Jacinda Ardern, spoke directly to Grace's family. Your daughter should have been safe here, and she wasn't, and I'm sorry for that. The country held vigils. Thousands of strangers grieved a young woman most of them had never met. An autopsy confirmed what the crime scene had already suggested. Grace had been strangled, with bruising on her arms and chest consistent with being pinned down. Pathologists determined the pressure on her neck had to be sustained for 4 to 5 minutes, far longer than any accident, and the digital trail made the accident defense nearly impossible to believe. In the hours after Grace died, while her body was still in his room, Kempson used his phone to search hottest fire, flesh-eating birds, and the exact location where he'd later try to bury her. Then he browsed pornography. Then he photographed her body. At trial, his defense argued this was nothing more than consensual rough sex that went catastrophically wrong. Sexual misadventure, not murder. The prosecution called it something else entirely. A calculated cover-up, a labyrinth of storytelling and lies, built by a man who did not panic but planned. After a 3-week trial and just 5 hours of jury deliberation, on December 22nd, 2019, Jesse Kempson was found guilty of murder. He was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum of 17 years before parole. Grace's mother addressed him directly in court. She died terrified and alone in a room with you. But this wasn't the last courtroom Jesse Kempson would stand in. 2 more women had recognized his blurred photo from the news and gone to police with their own stories. In 2 separate trials the following year, Kempson was convicted of years of physical, sexual, and financial abuse against a former partner, including choking her and draining $10,000 from her account, and of raping a British tourist he'd met on Tinder just 8 months before he murdered Grace, threatening to kill her and her family if she didn't comply. 11 more years were added to his sentence. Grace's father, David, passed away from cancer less than a year after his daughter's murder. Never seeing the additional convictions, never seeing his daughter's name finally spoken freely once the court lifted the suppression order hiding Kempson's identity. In her memory, Grace's family and friends raised over £11,000 for the White Ribbon Campaign, an organization working to end male violence against women. The Love Grace campaign was also founded in her name, collecting handbags filled with essential items for women fleeing abusive relationships. If you want to support either of those causes, I've linked them below, and if this case affected you the way it affected me, let me know in the comments and subscribe for the next one.